The rise of a new power. In the early 14th century, the world was a patchwork of fractured states, empires, and kingdoms. In the north of Anatolia, along the edges of the crumbling Byzantine Empire, a small principality began to stir, a power that would grow to reshape continents. This was the Ottoman Beylik, led by Osman I and his successors, a line of leaders whose ambition was as unyielding as the mountains they called home. To the Christian kingdoms of the Balkans, they were a distant rumor at first. Raiders crossing the borders, testing defenses, gathering intelligence. Yet each incursion, each raid, each calculated move was more than a plunder. It was a statement. The Ottomans were not content with survival. They sought dominion. They combined speed, discipline, and faith. Cavalry swept across plains with the precision of an arrow in flight. Archers and infantry followed, ready to strike wherever the enemy faltered. They did not merely fight battles. They studied them, learning, adapting, and preparing for the inevitable march into Europe itself. And in the words of the prophet, peace be upon him, leaders who combine strategy, courage, and faith are destined to leave a mark. History had noticed the Ottomans. Europe would soon feel their shadow. First contact with the Balkans. In the early raids into the Balkans, the Ottomans were swift, precise, and unnerving. Serbia, Bulgaria, and other Balkan states had long relied on rugged terrain and ancient fortresses to protect their kingdoms. But the Ottomans did not just attack. They observed, learned, and adapted. Scouts mapped every valley, every river crossing, every hidden path. Local populations reported rumors of light cavalry striking at dawn and vanishing before retaliation could be organized. The psychological impact was profound. Fear spread faster than the Ottoman swords. Leaders of the Balkan principalities realized that this was not a raid of opportunity, but the harbinger of something far larger. A disciplined, expanding empire that combined faith, strategy, and relentless determination. Europe had glimpsed a new force rising from the Anatolian hills, and there was no turning back. Strategy over strength. The Ottomans understood that sheer numbers alone could not secure permanent control. Instead, they relied on strategy, alliances, and psychological warfare. Tributes were demanded from smaller principalities. Treaties were forged with some rulers to secure loyalty without bloodshed. At the same time, fortresses were taken methodically. The Ottomans would surround a city, cut supply lines, and wait for surrender. When resistance persisted, precise military engineering and disciplined troops ensured victory with minimal unnecessary loss. This approach allowed the empire to expand rapidly while conserving resources, building infrastructure, and maintaining the loyalty of conquered populations through fairness and administration. The Siege of Nis. The Ottomans laid siege to the fortress city of Nis, not with chaos, but with precision. Engineers built wooden siege towers and positioned cannons facing the thick stone walls. Defenders repaired breaches tirelessly, but the Ottomans rotated troops, reinforced weak points, and used careful planning to exhaust the garrison. After weeks of patient maneuvering, the city surrendered. Not every battle required bloodshed. Many were won through discipline, engineering, and psychological mastery. Each conquest strengthened the Ottomans' understanding of Balkan warfare, preparing them for even larger campaigns ahead. The Battle of Maritsa. The river. Maritsa flowed quietly under the moonlight as the Balkan coalition believed itself secure. Their camp was large, confident, and unguarded by fear. But in the darkness, Ottoman forces moved with silence and precision. Using the terrain and the element of surprise, They crossed the river and struck at the heart of the camp before dawn. Confusion spread through the coalition ranks. Commanders struggled to organize defenses as the Ottomans pressed forward with disciplined formations and unwavering resolve. By sunrise, the balance of power in the southern Balkans had shifted. The victory at Maritsa was not just a military triumph. It was a message to every kingdom in the region that the Ottomans had arrived as a dominant force. The rise of the Janissaries. As the empire expanded, the Ottomans understood that lasting power required more than victory in battle. It required a standing army, loyal not to local leaders, but to the state itself. From this vision rose the Janissaries, an elite corps trained from a young age in discipline, strategy, and unity. They became the backbone of Ottoman military strength, marching in formation with precision that stunned their enemies. Their presence on the battlefield transformed Ottoman warfare. Where others relied on feudal levies and temporary forces, the Ottomans deployed a professional army guided by structure, loyalty, and unwavering command. The rise of the Janissaries marked a turning point. The empire was no longer a collection of warriors. It was becoming a machine of conquest and governance. The fall of Serbian power. The Serbian principalities had long stood as a barrier between the Ottomans and the heart of Europe. Their fortresses, crowned hills, and guarded river crossings, symbols of resilience and sovereignty. But years of pressure, divided leadership, and shifting alliances weakened their ability to resist a united and disciplined force. The Ottomans advanced steadily, securing key routes and surrounding strongholds one by one. When resistance finally collapsed, it was not in a single moment, but through a gradual unraveling of political and military authority. The path into the Central Balkans now lay open. This transformation reshaped the balance of power in the region, signaling that the Ottoman presence was no longer temporary. It was permanent. A continent takes notice. News of Ottoman expansion traveled far beyond the Balkans. In the courts of Hungary, Venice, and the Holy Roman Empire, envoys carried reports of disciplined armies, falling fortresses, and shifting borders. Maps were redrawn. Alliances were debated. Kings and nobles began to understand that what was unfolding was not a local conflict, but the rise of a power that would challenge the political order of Europe itself. For some, the Ottomans were a threat to be resisted. For others, they were a force to be negotiated with. Trade routes, diplomatic missions, and military coalitions all became part of a growing web of response to a changing world. The Balkans had become the frontier of a continental transformation, the road to Kosovo. As Ottoman influence spread across the Balkans, the remaining powers sought one decisive stand. Serbian leaders, joined by regional allies, gathered their forces on the plains of Kosovo, believing the open field would favor their combined strength. The Ottomans approached with careful planning rather than haste. Supply lines were secured, formations were drilled, and commanders studied the terrain in detail. When the two sides finally faced each other, it was not just an army confronting an army. It was a contest between an older feudal order and a rising centralized empire. The outcome would echo through generations, shaping memory, legend, and the future of the region.